days of our profession, the bar was a community of seniors personally grooming juniors. Work drafts by juniors to seniors returned back with red ink and even quiet lectures. Court visits were schoolings, not errands, in those days. Many of our most admired senior legal practitioners and even learned silks today were products of such intentional tutelage and pupillage. What kept standards high was not only talent, it was proximity, practice, and correction. What I call the PPC, Protocol of Intentional Mentorship. Proximity, practice, and correction. It was daily exposures to the craft as practiced by those determined to intentionally pass it on, those who were legacy conscious. As the profession expanded, this professional intimacy became distant. We multiplied numbers without multiplying methods. We grew bigger, but we did not intentionally brew better. Surely, our growth is not the enemy of mentorship. I'll call it pain when I see lawyers argue in court without deference. Not their fault. This is the fault of lack of structured mentorship. In legal practice, more is caught than is taught. Young ones, did you hear that? In legal practice, more is caught than is taught. You catch more by looking and staying close. Books and rules offer limited benefits. The Rules of Professional Conduct for Legal Practitioners 2023 outlined principles of integrity, courtesy, and fidelity, but without mentorship to embody these values, they remain just aspirational. Hence, a rule without a model becomes a ruse. Mentorship is how we turn aspirations to manifestation. Mentorship is how we turn aspiration to character shaping. Books will teach what the law is. Mentors will teach what the law requires. I remember when I was a young lawyer practicing in Ibadan, or your state, in the chambers of Elo, Fagbemi, SAN, and Co. Some 24 years ago, or 25, I'm not sure again, the chambers was a school disguised as an office. We read in one another's presence. We practiced in each other's presence. We listened as seniors argue amongst themselves. We followed them to court. We observed their tone. We observed their posture. We even observed their courtesies. I remember how my principal then, Prince Edofagbemi SAN, would greet the court whenever he's about to take his leave from the court. He would say, "My Lord, please enjoy what remains of the day." I will see a broad smile on the face of the court. I determined within my heart that exactly is how I will be greeting the courts. As a young lawyer, that was how I was greeting the courts. And in no distant time, I had a reputation for being confident. I was not confident because I was born confident. I learned confidence by observing posture, by observing idiosyncrasies, by observing how the principals were doing it, and they intentionally mentored us. Of course, in no distant time, that became the manner in which I exited the bar also. As we begin to embody excellence through emulation, practice, and correction. Mistakes were corrected real time. The day always ended with quiet debriefs over case law. I also remember our head of chambers then, I think he's an SAN now, Mr. Akim Afolabi SAN. He had an unusual capacity to remember cases within a fraction of a minute. He was a deep repository of case law. He also kept one book, very big and robust. Guess what he called it? Practice notes. He kept that very big, robust book called Practice Notes, and we watched him in amazement as he displayed the wealth of case law. So I thought, maybe if I keep practice notes too, I will be able to memorize law. But I found out that I always go back to that practice note. But a practice note I did keep. Now, in very little time, we the juniors began to copy that pristine behavior of keeping practice notes. That behavior today stands me in good stead today in courts. And my practice note never leaves my side while in court. It always appears to the lawyers like I had the laws at my fingertips. No, I was stealing from the practice note. A culture I developed during the years of practice. Truly, more is caught than taught. This is what proximity, practice, and correction does to the minds of young lawyers. The environment taught us more than what law taught us. It taught the reading of the profession. Oh, there is a reading in the legal profession. There's truly a reading in the legal profession. That's why we are called learned, not educated. We embody that reading. We carry that reading. And that reading is caught, not taught. Today, much of that reading occurs in silence. Drafts of the work juniors do now move through email threads. Meetings migrate to online platforms. Juniors can work for months without sitting across from their supervisor. And there is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. This is because technology has changed how we work, how we live, how we learn, and even how we relate with one another. I often say that in the no distant future, physical meeting will become a luxury. It will soon become a luxury. Technology has changed everything. I am among those who welcome technological changes. And in fact, at some time in the past, I had pioneered it. If you listen to the resume they read of me, you will hear that I pioneered the first ever digital affidavit in the Nigerian judiciary. No, you will clap for me. You won't clap for me. You clap for me. Now, that was just a joke. But thank you for clapping. That is a process now that is being copied and replicated across the nation. When we were to do it, they said it cannot be done. Today, Kaduna has replicated. Port Harcourt has replicated. Lagos is almost robustly replicating. Ondo State is replicating. Kaduna was the first to take it on. Niger is on the brink of perfecting. And each time they call upon me, please help us develop an SOP. That's a standard operating procedure, which I've done for a couple of them. So I am not against technological process. I am not. Digital filing, online research, virtual hearings, virtual meetings, and I must say something, especially about virtual hearing. Please, will you take the word back to the President of the National Industrial Court? We salute his progressive technological advancement that he has brought to the NIC. I think NIC represents the only court, it's certainly not the only court, but represents the court who places heavy emphasis on virtual hearing, making access to justice truly easy and visible. So please take our words back to Honorable Justice Kai. I must not forget. Now, these technological advancements, they have made law and the practice of law faster, broader, and more accessible. However, something precious is slipping through the cracks. Something precious is slipping through the cracks. That informal apprenticeship that once grew naturally through proximity, practice, and correction, that physical chambers, in its physical sense, is beginning to vanish. We have gained speed, but we have lost texture. The digital revolution has also changed where lawyers work. Remote and hybrid arrangements are now the new order of the day, and like I said, there is nothing wrong with that. Only that mentorship requires more of observation than instruction. One learns in this profession by being near, by hearing, by seeing, by observing and absorbing the unscripted nuances. When proximity totally disappears, tacit knowledge evaporates. The legal profession thrives on nuances. Technology can only transmit data. It cannot transmit nuances. This is not an argument against technological process or progress. It is a call to redesign this progress using technology. We can use technology to enhance mentorship, and you will hear a lot of ideas that we will be proceeding today. We will use technology to enhance mentorship and not replace mentorship. Did you hear that? We can use technology to enhance mentorship, not replace mentorship. Technology promises speed, but its danger is isolation. I now move to my next question, the penultimate question. Is enthusiasm of the young lawyers a lone voice? Every time I meet newly called counsel or a new week, I am reminded that enthusiasm alone cannot sustain this career. The enthusiastic fire of a young advocate quickly dims out the moment his rent is due to be paid, or salaries unpaid, or the profession's promises feel abstract. It is hard to listen to pristine virtues when you cannot even afford the transportation to court. Economic hardship has become a silent saboteur of mentorship. This has thoroughly loosened the grip of mentorship. I have watched with deep concern forces that loosened this mentorship. One is socio-economic pressure for certain. The economic realities combating both senior and older, the senior and the younger lawyers complicates mentorship. Poor remuneration, lack of structured welfare, the unrealistic work expectations, leave little or no long-term professional reflection. The result is a culture of short-term survival. Short-term survival. Many juniors leave private practice ultimately, and they leave prematurely for corporate roles, politics, or entrepreneurship. And there is nothing wrong with this. I'm also one of those who did that. At some point, when ends could not meet, I left to the banking industry. I worked in the bank for a short while as a credit administration officer. Then I realized that I'm not ready to live my life on credit. And I went back to the legal profession. My observation in the last 10 years on the bench, out of my 23 years on the bench, is that less and less young lawyers come to court. So 2 weeks ago, I had the luxury of seeing 3 young lawyers at once in my court. 3 young lawyers. I called them to my chambers. I spoke words of encouragement to them. I said, you know why I'm speaking to you? Because Because I know in the next 6 months, I won't see you on this landscape again if there's nobody encouraging you and giving you words of hope. So today, I told them, take these words as a word that will be reverberating in your mind every time you think of leaving the profession. Because if we do not do that, we will get to a point where only the old weeds will be left in this profession. And any profession that leaves its young ones unguided and unguarded will lose continuity. So, a profession that fails to nurture its youngest members not only loses continuity, but also loses its conscience. Today, the concern of young lawyers is to meet deadlines, not to cultivate depth. Yes, depth can only be cultivated through mentorship. There is something I wanted to talk about. I hope I have not missed it, because I'm jumping my book. Aside economic pressure and digital distance, another factor that loses the grip of mentorship is generational mistrust. This is very key. Generational mistrust. Seniors perceive juniors as impatient. Juniors perceive seniors as indifferent. Both will ultimately withdraw from one another. There's no other way. This tension, unaddressed, has fractured the chain of knowledge transfer. The younger generation enter the world of flattened hierarchies and instant information. They respect knowledge, not necessarily rank. They question the status quo, and rightly so. Seniors, extremely unsure of how to bridge this divide, generally retreat into silence. The profession becomes a chorus of parallel monologues. Did you get parallel monologues? Parallel monologues. You know, it's really a very hard job, so please appreciate me. How do you sign parallel monologue? Try it. Younger lawyers inhabit a different professional landscape. They are digital natives. They are impatient with bureaucracy, and they are eager for results. It's understandable. Their sense of identity is global, not local. And they have access to information that once took us years of tutelage to obtain. Many seniors, by contrast, have built their careers in an era when patience was the first proof of seriousness. To show that you're serious, you will be patient. So they will tell you, you must take 10 years in this job before you get a breakthrough. Young lawyers don't want to hear that. 10 years? They will tell you I'll be dead by then. Actually, they will. So what's the way out? To the young lawyers, or rather to the older lawyers, the new generation appear too restless. On the other hand, to the new generation lawyers, the older generation appears too rigid. The older lawyers misinterpret passion as arrogance. The new generation lawyer misread caution as fear. It must be noted that this disconnect did not emerge out of malice, but it is the natural friction of our changing times. Yet, if we leave it unaddressed, it will breed mutual suspicion and even disrespect. Seniors have stopped offering guidance because they assume it will be rejected. Juniors have stopped seeking guidance because they expect to be patronized. That quiet distance and generational mistrust is the main mentorship silence killer. The generational tension also manifests in our language. Seniors speak the language of pay your dues. Juniors speak the language of work-life balance. Where seniors emphasize loyalty, juniors emphasize opportunity. These are not opposites. They are simply coordinates of the same value system. Therefore, commitment must be balanced with fairness. But without spaces like this, to have this kind of dialogue as we are having today, this difference will harden into contempt. And I think we should give Mr. Johnny Aggie another round of applause for this. I have heard seniors say to me that the new bar is allergic to discipline. I have also heard young lawyers whisper to me that mentorship is a disguise for exploitation. Both are just mere exaggerations born out of fatigue. Bridging this gap, therefore, requires deliberate institutional design. Are there contrary views to this? Oh yes. I will be naive to think that some people are not against what Mr. Aggie is initiating. But what are their arguments? I am not unaware nor oblivious that there are counter-arguments to this narrative of institutionalizing mentorship. Some argue that mentorship is a private process. What's the problem with you? Why do you want to institutionalize it? It is not a public duty. I humbly disagree. When a profession holds monopoly over the right to represent another human being, as touching his rights and touching his liberty, my brother, the society has a legitimate interest in knowing how that profession reproduces itself. Mentorship serves as an infrastructure for justice, and leaving it to chance is inviting systemic risk. Other people fear that formalizing mentorship will stiffen the relationship. Well, the answer is not to avoid that structure, but to design light frameworks bespoke enough to protect flexibility while ensuring accountability. For many years, we have spoken of mentorship as a value or a virtue. Now, we must treat it as an infrastructure. We need an architectural design. We truly need an architectural design. Each time I attend or even speak at a call to bar ceremony, I am struck by how many institutions shape just one lawyer. From the universities to Nigerian Law School, to the bar, to the bench, to the body of benchers, to the Ministry of Justice, and so on. Mentorship lives within all of these bodies, yet not one of these bodies is holding full custody. To institutionalize mentorship, we must first understand where does it already exist and where has it faded away, and take full responsibility for its continuity. I have encountered lawyers who are technically adept, fluent in digital research, persuasive in speech and in writing, yet lacking the delicate balance of judgment. They can find their authorities, but they cannot find their priorities. Isn't it important that we then design a structure? The judicial report. The consequences of all of these gaps extends to the bench as well. I'm not excluding us. A poorly mentored bar eventually will produce a fragile bench. Take it or leave it. A poorly mentored bar will produce a fragile bench. Judges emerge from the same pool and ranks of practitioners. The mentorship that fails in chambers will eventually enter the courtrooms. The same gap in discipline, in writing, in empathy that we tolerate today at the bar will create systemic courtroom deficiency tomorrow. The chain is continuous. In conclusion, therefore, I propose a national mentorship council, jointly owned. It took me hours to come up with that. I propose a National Mentorship Council jointly owned by all the stakeholders, from the universities to the Nigerian Law School to the body of ventures, up to the grant stage of the NBA and the judiciary and the National Judicial Institute, and perhaps the National Judicial Council. On a lighter note, a strange idea flew through my mind this morning as I was rounding up this keynote. And I said, why don't we design a contraption that is akin to what is practiced in the Catholic Church, where young married couples are given older married couples as what they call sponsors. Yes, sponsors. So these sponsors will hold their arms, help them to build sustainable handrails through the vicissitudes of marriage. But then I perished that thought, because no one is looking for wedding bells here. We are just looking for the bells of professionalism to be rung well. So, it benefits no one that our institutions should operate in silos. We should have a National Mentorship Council. And because of that, I would refer you to a book that I wrote. I wrote a book. Clap for me. I don't have the copy here, but Mr. Adi will do justice to that copy. And there in that book, I outlined what the life cycle of a living system should be, from governance up to the end structure of sustainability. It will help those who are policy formulators here. It will help those who are policy formulators here. Are they bending their heads or they are raising their heads? I am looking at somebody. I'm not looking at His Excellency, but I am saying it will help those who are policy formulators and executors here. Is the minister looking up or looking down? Let me find out. Okay. Today is a clarion call to pay attention. Pay attention. A profession that fails to pay attention to the guidance of the younger generation will produce a generation of technically qualified lawyers, but disengaged from the spirit of the profession. Lawyers who know the rules, but who no longer believe in the calling. Restoring mentorship, therefore, begins with restoring dignity, and dignity has a cost. The cost is attention. Pay attention. As I round up, I say, may our profession never lack wisdom, nor our generation lack guidance. To every mentor whose professional light has made the way clearer, may you continue to shine brighter. May our path be illuminated. And to every mentee who is still willing to learn and to grow, may your path also be built. To the Jason Foundation Initiative, may you become an eternal excellency and a joy of many generations. May star shines from your loins. And now to everyone here seated, may you become shining lights in our profession. Therefore, I thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Please put your hands together properly for her.